What is going on, people of the internet? Hyperchaotic here with a K, double R, and welcome back or welcome if this is your first time visiting my channel. And today, I'm going to be tackling the topic of whether or not Pride Month should be accepted or recognized in schools. And keep in mind that I'm going to be saying in schools in general, elementary, junior high, high school, just across the board. And since June is almost over, this will also be my final Pride Month related video. Until, of course, next Pride Month. Or if I feel like just covering the topic related to the LGBT community at all. So we're going to go ahead and just dive right into it. But really quickly, I just got to state this right off the bat. And just be honest that I don't completely understand what people mean by accepting or recognizing Pride Month in schools. I mean, I'm going to assume moving forward with this video that by accepting or recognizing Pride Month, it means on the same, in the same vein as saying we accept Latino History Month, Black History Month, Asian History Month, or we accept or recognize a specific national holiday or event. I mean, in all honesty, I don't know what else people could mean by that. But assuming this is the context that people mean by accepting or recognizing Pride Month in schools, then I, for one, will just flat out say, yeah, I think it should be allowed to be recognized or accepted in schools. If we're literally just accepting it as an official national month. That's it. I'm pretty sure that's where it begins and ends. I mean, all Pride Month is a celebration of people being accepted for who they are and being treated as human beings. Specifically placed on a month that, historically speaking, was, chosen for protest related to this community. Pride originally started off as protests for LGBT people to be recognized as human beings, and over time, as that happened throughout history, Pride Month pretty much just became an event recognized to celebrate those who are recognized as human beings. That's really all there is to it. I mean, I don't know what people really expect the schools to do other than, I don't know, maybe they'll put some Pride related decorations up around the school, maybe, but that's really about it. Again, that's where it begins and ends, just being recognized, and maybe some decorations to, get in with the theme. It just seems so dumb to really make it such a big fuss, but of course, anybody who's been keeping up with this whole political zeitgeist related to the LGBT community, no matter what it is, you probably heard about the whole debate of whether or not Pride should be accepted or recognized in schools. Especially if you remember the whole controversy around, what was his name again? Nick Merckx. I couldn't remember his name. I don't really watch the guy. I'm not really interested in streams in general, let alone Call of Duty streams. Basically, if you remember the whole controversy about, they should leave the kids alone, quote unquote, over a school recognizing Pride Month. Which again, that's where it begins and ends. And there was a whole protest about that a year and a half ago, I can't remember. It was a while ago when it happened, but not too long ago. Though it feels like that. Now, a good reason why people make a big fuss about it or make the same claims as Nick Merckx did to just leave the kids alone is because people are concerned about what their kids will be taught. By all means, please tell me, what exactly do you think your kids are going to be taught in the middle of fucking June? Now, if for some reason just saying the name of the month, June, is not enough to ring the damn bell in your head of why just arguing about this is stupid in the first place, let me go ahead and freaking spell it out for you. Because for some of you out there, clearly you've been out of school for so long you forgot when school ends. Now, before anybody says this, I know it may depend on the school, and I will cover that in a sec in this video. But let me go ahead and spell it out for those people out there first who haven't been to school in a very long time, or probably don't even have freaking kids to begin with, yet they're making a fuss about this. Even then, if you've been to school before, you should know when school begins and ends, as far as the months go. And that's why I emphasize the fact that schools recognizing an event in June. Because that's literally when schools end. That's when the school years typically end for most schools in America. Now, depending on maybe your school, or I guess maybe the time period you went to school, I don't know if this is something that was changed amongst many schools over time. But I remember growing up, schools that I went to usually would end in June. Now, they would end maybe on the first week of June or the third week of June. It really depends, because for the final 3 weeks of school, if my memory serves me correct from when I was in school, and I'm 25 years old, by the way, the third to last week of school, kids are finishing up their testing. During the second to last week of school, kids are not really doing anything. The lessons are finished. Nobody's getting in schoolwork, no worksheets. Nobody's doing a lesson out of the workbook or off the chalkboard. Maybe if there are some kids behind on their schoolwork and on their points, there are some kids catching up on that schoolwork so they can get their points, so they don't fail the grade, or at the very least, they don't have to go to summer school. But in the meantime, for that second to last week, kids are really just there to be babysat by the teachers, while their test scores get run up into the system, and it's decided whether or not they will move forward into the grade, or take summer school, or repeat the grade. Unless, of course, we're talking about 8th graders or seniors in high school. Then they're getting ready for graduation within those final weeks. But for those not graduating within those grades, for every other grade, third to last week, finishing up tests, second to last week, they're basically just being babysat while their scores, get run up into the system, while they get tallied up. And it is decided whether or not they will move forward in the grade, take summer school, or have to repeat the grade. Of course, for those kids that are doing work, they're catching up on some late work to catch up on some points, to make sure they don't have to repeat the grade or go to summer school, or at the very least, that's all they have to do. Trust me, kids, as somebody who's been to summer school before, better to do that than have to repeat the whole grade over again. I haven't had to do that, but one of my siblings did. And for the final week, kids are only in the school for 2 days. The first day, I think it's basically like half a day, but this may or may not depend on the school. I'm not 100% sure. I did go to some schools where it was a full school day, but for most of my grades, for most of the schools I went to, it was just a half a day on the Monday for that last week. Again, just basically being babysat. Maybe we would have had a report card taken home that day. Most likely would have came in for that on Friday. And then that's it. School's over. Summer vacation starts. No lessons were taken throughout those whole 3 weeks. The only work being done were tests and any kids catching up on work to catch up on their points, to not flunk. And they're not even being taught lessons. It's just work on lessons they've already been taught. And that's all within the final 3 weeks of school, which, depending on the school, I believe, or if schools are changing it up, I don't know. Those 3 final weeks are either all in June, or the final week is in June, with the other 2 final weeks being in May, the final last weeks of May. Now, I mentioned earlier, depending on the school you went to, you may have went to a school that started sooner or ended sooner. Some kids out there, some of my siblings, went to schools where the school started in August and ended in May. But the situation is pretty much the same for those final 3 weeks. Just those final 3 weeks are going to be in May, and they start school in August. They basically get the same amount of time as far as summer vacation goes, but their summer vacation ends sooner than summer ends. Only because that's the school you go to. But for me personally, for the schools I went to, it usually ended in June. Again, that final week being in June, or those final 3 weeks being in June. No lessons being taught. Basically the same situation for those who end in May. No lessons being taught in those final 3 weeks. Tests, catching up on some work, that's it. So I am genuinely curious what the hell these quote-unquote concerned parents are truly concerned their kids are going to be taught when no lessons are being taught to begin with. Not even for math, science, or reading. School's over. Tests are done. Pencils are down. And for some reason, when it comes to the LGBT and anything related to school, people's first instinct is always sexual education. Why? I hear some people say, oh, well, what am I supposed to tell my kids if they see two gay men or gay women kissing? The same fucking thing you tell them when they see a man or a woman kissing. Literally the same fucking thing. Just switch the fucking genders, that's it. When a man and a woman love each other very much. Oh, but daddy, it wasn't a man and a woman, it was two men. Well, the same thing, sweetheart. When a man and a man or a woman and woman loves each other very much, they lock lips. But why, daddy? Why do men and women, however they do it, lock lips when they love each other? Well, just because we feel like doing it. But only when you get older, when you truly understand love. That's it. That's all you have to tell them. You don't have to give them like, all right, son, let me tell you about the birds and the bees. Dad, I'm just asking you, why are two boys kissing? We're going to get to that. Let me tell you about the birds. No, you don't have to do all that. Whatever you tell them for a man and a woman kissing, literally just say the same fucking thing, but it's a man and a man or a woman and a woman. That's it. That's where it begins and ends. And by the way, if you want your children to be better protected from being sexually assaulted or being taken advantage of by predators, the best way to do that is for them to have a proper sexual education. Now, nobody's saying you gotta teach your fucking third graders about how a penis works at that grade. No, there are various stages of sexual education depending on the grade. When people think of sexual education, they're only thinking of direct intercourse. You know, how a baby is made. STDs. Contraceptives. But no, sexual education is more than just intercourse, but also how the body functions and other stuff related to your sex and not necessarily having anything to do with intercourse or even the genitals, like hormones, which can affect many other things within your body. Testosterone can affect hair growth. And both testosterone and estrogen can affect your emotions. Both of these hormones are in both men and women. If women didn't have testosterone, they wouldn't have hair. But they're going to have more of one than the other because that's what their body requires for that specific sex of that specific body. Now, this gets a little bit more complicated when you decide to bring trans people into the mix, but their bodies work differently, especially when you take into consideration the brain, which is responsible for those hormones. But that's neither here or there, and even then, my point is, at the end of the day, that's part of a sexual education, and that has nothing to do with sexual intercourse. It has nothing to do with the genitals. I literally just talked about hair growth and emotions. And going back to what I said about different levels, different stages of sexual education, depending on the grade or even the age of the child. If you think you would never give your child a sexual education when, let's say, they're just like 5 to 7 years old, let me ask you this, to any of the parents out there. Have you ever taught your child to never let somebody touch you in the private parts or the no-no square because only you should be checking your own parts because that's your body? To not let anybody touch your body without consent, and the only ones who should be allowed to check is mommy and daddy and a doctor in case you think something's wrong. If you've ever told your child that, congratulations, you've given them a lower form, a lower stage of sexual education on how to protect themselves, to check themselves. If you've ever given the no-no square song, hey, don't touch me there, this is my no-no square, that's a form of sexual education. If you've properly taught your kids how to clean themselves, including down there, that's a form of sexual education. A form of sexual education related to hygiene. Having nothing to do with intercourse. Although it has to do with the genitals, it's about keeping them clean. About protecting yourselves from pathogens. Mothers, fathers, guardians, grandparents, whatever the case may be. If you're raising your child and you're teaching them how to properly clean themselves, you're going to have to teach your boys how to pull the skin back to properly clean themselves. Unless, of course, they're circumcised, but A, there are complications with that. You're better off just teaching them to pull it back, and B, I understand there is a degree to where you can cut enough to where they don't have struggles pulling it back, to where they will still have some skin, but even then, you're still going to have to teach them they have to pull it back and properly wash and get in there. And the same thing for the girls. For some people out there, for the fellas specifically, if you don't know, women have a specific vaginal soap for their vagine. Because ladies have to get up in there to properly keep it clean and make sure they don't develop like a yeast infection. So bacteria doesn't get them sick down there. And it's a special type of soap that's very, very sensitive on that area. By the way, a quick tip to the guys. If you ever have a situation where you have a bad rash on you or maybe some scabs from an injury and it's a pain, like a physical pain to take a bath, to take a shower because the soap is stinging that area, use a woman's V soap. It'll work perfectly for that. You can clean yourself and it'll be very gentle on that area. And look, none of that jokes. You're not going to turn gay or grow vagina just because you use the soap. I'm literally just recommending a much more gentle soap for when you have a really bad rash or a bad injury so you can keep that area clean. But it's not a bunch of physical pain just to keep it clean because the soap is stinging the ever-loving hell out of you. I do it all the time personally. It helps. And of course, same to the ladies. If you ever have a rash anywhere else besides the private parts, maybe, some poison oak gave you a bad rash, maybe you got a skin infection or an injury, like a scab, you don't want to burn yourself with a regular bar soap, use your vagine soap to wash that infected area, that injured area, and it won't sting as much. Seriously, people, sexual education is important. I mean, some of this stuff doesn't even, again, have anything to do with direct sexual intercourse, or in some cases, the genitals. And don't tell me that some of this isn't going to be beneficial to some of you out there. To the men and the women, again. You ever have a bad skin infection or rash from anything else? Maybe you rubbed on a plant that's making you very itchy. The vagine soap will help if regular soap is stinging your skin, or if you got an injured area. That's it. Oh, and by the way, to all the quote-unquote concerned parents worried about kids being taught about LGBT people in school, first of all, you know the internet exists, right? I mean, people say this all the time, but it only takes one quick Google search. And secondly, they're already being taught about LGBT people during LGBT History Month, which is in October, and has already been accepted for quite a while, like Latino and Black History Month, or Asian History Month. And what are they being taught in relation to LGBT History Month? The exact same freaking shit they would learn during Asian History Month, Black History Month, Latino History Month. They'll be taught about the people who exist within American culture, or Canadian if you guys do the same thing in Canada, UK if you guys do the same thing in the UK, I don't know, but in America, we're just recognizing and accepting the fact that these people exist in America, in this nation. They had their struggles, a lot of the protests they've been through, what they may have contributed to society. Maybe they've been farmers, maybe they've been inventors, maybe they've been doctors, stuff like that. Nothing to do with fucking. And when it comes to history, you can't edit or take anything out. Otherwise, you're not going to have the full big picture. You're not going to tell the full truth. It's like when people say that freaking politics and religion should have been taught in school, and people say, well, what about history? Oh, well, there too. No, absolutely freaking not. And I'll say this as a guy who hates politics and hates religion. You cannot take politics and religion out of history, because of all things, those have a huge effect, a huge influence on history, then and now. And for the exact same reasons, you cannot take them out, because you will not have the full big picture. You will not have the full truth. And when it comes to history, not having all the pieces together to begin with some things not being recorded in time, it's already hard as is to not see the full truth. You're not going to help the situation by taking pieces out. History is history, and it should be taught in its fullest, to the best that we can, because not all of it is full within the history books. And yes, sometimes from there, even in schools, we may fill in the gaps and do a little bit of speculation. But at the end of the day, you're just supposed to learn from history. The good and the bad from the past. Not about how to fuck somebody in the asshole. For the love of God, what the fuck is wrong with some of you numbnuts? So, yeah. Pride Month should be accepted or recognized in schools, because nobody's being taught anything during the month of June. School's finishing up, it's wrapping up, or it's already over, depending on the school your kids go to. Or you go to, depending on the individual watching this. And that's literally where it begins and ends. Because as far as learning about LGBT people and their history, they're literally already doing that. They're in LGBT History Month. And just in history class in general, if they ever come up, depending on a specific time period or a lesson they're learning. Like literally any other minority group when learning about American history. I know somebody's going to try to still argue against this, but I don't know what more I could possibly add to this. Just the fact that it's June should be enough to tell you why this shouldn't be a big deal about it being recognized. Nobody's going to be taught shit. But with that said, regardless of whether or not you agree or disagree, whatever your opinions are, go ahead and let me know what they are in the comment section down below. And while you're at it, leave a like if you've enjoyed, or if you agree. If not, leave a dislike and a comment telling me why, because any and all interaction is good interaction for my channel and the algorithm, and any and all criticism can help me get better. And please do leave your dislikes if you didn't enjoy it, because your dislikes do matter, and I do appreciate your time even if you didn't enjoy it, especially if you made it all the way to the end. I really, really do. And of course, if you did enjoy, subscribe to add a little dose of chaos in your life. For those of you new to me, I do commentary related videos every now and then. Right now I'm primarily doing gaming related videos. I might do some other stuff in the future. I'm working into that, but I'm trying to finish up certain video game projects before I do that. I also have a second no commentary gameplay channel for no commentary playthroughs and video game preservation. And also I am available on other platforms. Shout out to those watching on BitChute, Rumble, and Odyssey. Unless, of course, you're watching on those platforms, I'm also available on YouTube. Nonetheless, thank you all for watching on either platform, and leave your likes and dislikes regardless. Chaotic out. Links down below. Have a good one.